I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is.
Hey guys, RanterInShades here, exercise my first Remember Rights vlog style. Hope you're enjoying the new year so far, as it is definitely later in January than this video normally comes out, and it's not being posted in conjunction with the War Songs video. If you need a refresher, or if you haven't seen the War Songs video yet, it's linked in the description and up in the pullout card. Thanks to Billboard being really difficult with how their chart year works, I decided to abandon the New Year's deadline I've had for years for the year-end videos for the sake of not overworking myself with editing and being more considerate of my health in general. That way I can keep my year-end chart criteria, I can do everything I normally do throughout the week and not feel like I'm wasting time I could be spending working on these videos, and I can ensure that both videos will be at the level of quality I think they deserve to be. So with the War Songs video out of the way, it's time for the video I'm actually looking forward to making. As much as the setbacks of 2024 were really shitty to endure, it's frankly incredible how much they only amounted to a minuscule portion of the year while I spent the rest of the year riding high. From the high-performing videos I put out this year, to passing 5,000 subscribers, to meeting Atticus the Death Metaler in person, to the fun concert adventures and breaking my yearly record again, to the best couple since Eric and Donna on That 70s Show tying the knot, to a particular thing I'm not at liberty to make public yet, 2024 was such an insane year. And this of course was also reflected in the music of this year. While I was nervous about how the War Songs video this year would turn out with how much I didn't feel like I was hearing a lot that I knew would qualify for inclusion, I had more than enough to work with for this video. Just like how I was amazed that I was able to round up 10 songs for the War Songs video, I'm amazed I was able to narrow down all that I had made note of for this one down to 10. If I wanted to, I could expand this list to be a top 15 or even a top 20, but I think it's best that I stick with just 10, not just because I don't want this video to be any longer than I know it will be, but I think I deserve to challenge myself a little to keep the excitement at least a little under control. It's for this reason that I'm actually going to shake up the structure and quickly run through my honorable mentions first, just so you guys know from the get-go what didn't make the cut. These are all songs that are on the year-end chart, by the way. The first is Espresso by Sabrina Carpenter. I'm mainly putting this here because I'll be talking about a different song of Sabrina's in the main list. But this is a catchy little tune with some pretty funky instrumentation. Her likening herself to a caffeinated beverage in the sense that she's good tasting as well as having a particular zing to get a guy hyped up is kinda neat, even when she asserts herself like she wants to play with dudes' emotions because she doesn't feel particularly keen on entertaining their interest. Espresso is a fun song, but I just have a bit more fun with the song of hers that I decided to go with for the list proper. I have similar sentiments towards my next honorable mention, Birds of a Feather by Billie Eilish. Like with Sabrina Carpenter, I'm going with a different song of hers in the main list. This is definitely one of Billie's more fun-sounding songs. The instrumentation is cheerful and complements her soft voice really well, and the lyrics are especially wholesome. It reminds me of Oh My God by Adele in the sense that it can be treated as a following up of a more depressing song about the direction their life was headed, where they're now feeling such strong feelings of love. It's cute, but I'm going with a different Billie Eilish song later. Next is a bar song Tipsy by Shaboozey. I wouldn't say I love this song as much as a lot of other people on this side of the internet do. I'm mainly including it here because I don't think anybody else is going to make this reference.
The Big Shaboozey!
We get it, Shades, you're a 90s kid. But really, I can understand what gets this to click with people. It's upbeat, it's sincere sounding with the usage of acoustic guitar, and the interpolation of that Everybody in the Club Getting Tipsy song from the 2000s is pretty wholesome and charming. I also see this song as being the inverse of Old Town Road, in the sense that while that song was a rap song at its core with some country elements, a bar song is a country song at its core with some hip-hop elements, and it does a much better job at selling that fusion. So while this might not be a song I was jumping at the opportunity to talk about in this video, I figured the least I could do is put it in honorable mentions. While we're talking country, the next honorable mention goes to I Had Some Help by Post Malone featuring Morgan Wallen. Like I said in the last video, Post's country album F1 Trillion is my least favorite of his albums, partly because I'm not the biggest country guy and it's not a sound I really like hearing from an artist like Post, but also because he's someone that's known for blending a lot of genres from rap to rock to trap to pop, and he's just not doing it at all on this album. It's just straight up country.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Don't get me wrong, I don't hate the album, it's just not strong as a Post Malone album in my eyes. but I will at least acknowledge that I Had Some Help is pretty chill and good for what it is, and Post at least still gets to do that tremolo thing with his vocals. Next honorable mention I have is Water by Tyla. Her name sounds like Lois Griffin saying Tyler. Tyla! God, that's so dumb. I don't have much to say about this other than how the instrumental is really smooth and Tyla's vocals are really sweet. I'm not sure I really like her use of water as a verb.
Make me lose my breath, make me water.
Unless she's wanting to be told to water the plants, I guess. And for the final honorable mention, since I have no idea where else it would make sense to mention this, but Gojira actually had a song hit #1 on Billboard's Hard Rock Digital Sales chart with
Ah, ça ira.
after playing it at the fucking Olympics. It's a legit hit, and people say rock is dead. So now that that's out of the way, it's time for the part of the video where I re-emphasize that the rules for this list are that the songs need to be on the Billboard year-end chart in order to qualify for inclusion, which is linked in the description if you want to verify that they're actually there. And as cliched as it is to say, this is also my perspective as someone that mainly listens to rock and metal and isn't known for being a hardcore chart follower. Even when I'm being positive, I go into these videos expecting some disagreement, but the beauty of music discourse is that with it being so subjective, it makes each person's perspective equally valid, even if they're not as articulate or learned on the subject. But if you disagree with any of my picks or how they're being ordered, just be cool, okay? Strap in, because here are my picks for the 10 best hit songs of 2024. Number 10. I've noticed there's been something of a rise in rock-sounding country artists. That's what Jelly Roll's appeal to me was a couple years back, and I like how this idea looks to be continuing. There's a band I've heard a bit about over the last year or so that I've been meaning to look into called Lakeview that's known for essentially combining country with hard rock, and that's the vibe I get when listening to World on Fire by Nate Smith. You can still hear some banjo become a little prominent in the verses, and Nate of course has that country accent, but with this kind of rock production, I feel like I'm listening to a post-grunge band like Nickelback or Daughtry. I can't complain too much about that, I've been pretty open about liking both of those bands. But while this isn't the first time I've heard a country artist sound like a rock artist, this feels like a shining example of how cool the genre can sound when the envelope gets pushed. Me being someone that's not a huge country fan, of course something that sounds like this would definitely appeal to me. And it kind of feels like World on Fire is the next in line of country songs that are pushing me in the direction of trying to develop more of a taste for it. Maybe more experienced country listeners might not see this as the greatest of examples, but again, this is how you get my attention. I'm putting this at the bottom because I wouldn't really say it wowed me to the extent that the other songs on this list did. It nonetheless was a pleasant thing to take notice of. I think you're going to see a lot on this list is that there's a pretty strong variety of different sounding stuff, and country hard rock is certainly something I'm glad I get to use to strengthen that idea. Number 9. I knew when Houdini, not to be confused with Eminem's song that's also on the year-end chart, released towards the end of last year that it was going to be an early contender for this list. Dua Lipa has become one of my favorite pop artists, and whenever I talk about her in the Best Songs series, I notice I'm always in a really excited mood because her music is just that fun. So you may be wondering, why am I only putting this at number 9? Well, I loved her album this year, Radical Optimism, which that's such an awesome title. But I wouldn't say Houdini was one of my favorites on the album compared to tracks like These Walls, Illusion, Happy For You, and my favorite on the album, Training Season. And compared to the other songs of hers I've covered in this series, it's the one I'm the least excited to talk about. But it's a fun song nonetheless. It's not like there's really such thing as a mediocre Dua Lipa song, at least outside of New Rules. This isn't as disco-flavored as Dua's been known to sound, but that influence is definitely still there. The sound here is more synth-poppy, but it doesn't feel like a huge stretch from everything that made Future Nostalgia the modern classic that it is. A lot of the credit for that is definitely owed to the producer and co-writer for many of the songs on Radical Optimism, Kevin Parker, who is best known as the creative force behind Tame Impala. If you've listened to Tame Impala before, you can definitely hear some influence from Kevin in this song here, and that's cool because Tame Impala is one of the freshest and most original sounding musical acts of the last decade, so adding that element to one of the best pop stars of the last decade is definitely going to interest me. Dua Lipa also sounds a lot more confident on Houdini. A thing I've mentioned a lot throughout my coverage of her songs in this series is that they represent something of an arc for her. Over time she's become more upbeat and positive, and getting to a point where you might say it's become radical. She's also had her bouts with relationships and not wanting to have her time be wasted, and Houdini is a song where I feel like she's being the most upfront about it. She's being open about how she wants this guy to actually step up to the plate because she could just as easily say,
"Thanks, but no thanks."
And she compares herself to the magician Harry Houdini, who's best known as being the father of escape artistry, as a means of saying she will disappear without a trace if the guy does not meet her expectations. Whether or not that sounds polite, I guess, would depend on the person, but the thing I like about this is that it's her way of establishing the fact that her standards exist, and if that intimidates you, then that's all she needs to know. But it's not like she wants to scare men off. The post-chorus is a lot more encouraging. She's now saying,
"By all means, shoot your shot. You never know until you try."
From my perspective as a guy, as intimidating as that could also feel, it's also something that's important to remember when you're navigating through life. You never know, your life could change in a way you never could have predicted.
You only get one shot, do not miss your chance to blow.
But that's a big thing that I appreciate about Houdini, how it furthers Dua's progression both narratively and musically, and even if it might not be my favorite song of hers, I'm glad it exists. Number 8. Sabrina Carpenter was a really interesting artist to catch my attention this year. I didn't really know much about her other than Todd in the Shadows featuring her song Nonsense in his best list for 2023, and for as much as it's basically the most personification of the word adorkable I think I've ever heard, it made a pretty good impression on me. She's another former Disney Channel actress that starred on a show I've never heard of, and she's apparently the other girl in Driver's License. It's weirdly ironic knowing that because Sabrina's rise to prominence reminds me a lot of that of Olivia Rodrigo back in 2021, in the sense that it's a young girl that oozes personality that makes a big splash out of nowhere and captures the hearts of everyone. And while I wouldn't say Sabrina appeals to me on the stylistic level that Olivia does, since Olivia's, the Avril Lavigne of the 2020s, it's definitely the kind of pop I can get into. Espresso and Please 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 were all over the place this year, and I ultimately was steered in the direction of downloading her album Short and Sweet with that gorgeous artwork. Her inclusion in this video was inevitable for most of this year, and while Espresso is a really catchy and enjoyable tune, I decided to throw a curveball and talk about a different song from the album, Taste. Of the songs from Short and Sweet on the year-end chart, Taste is the one that vibes the most like an 80s rock song. The chorus pops, you can hear some guitar in the mix, and Sabrina carries a lot of charm and personality. Much like Dua Lipa, you can really feel her swagger on a song like this, and despite what the song is about, she manages to not sound like an off-putting bitch. It's about her ex getting back with a previous partner, and she's saying to the other girl that anything the guy does is as a result of her influence, and that it's always going to linger around. It's pretty shameless, all things considered, and it's a subtle way of roasting this person and saying she isn't going to be as good as her. When I heard this line,
Every time you breathe this air, just know I was already there.
it reminded me of this old-ass video a former friend of mine used to quote ad nauseum from this guy called Capno Awesome, or Captain Awesome. He made, in his words, an ultimate ponage video towards an old-school YouTube atheist by the name of Fake Sagan, where he one-ups the guy by saying that he previously had sex with his girlfriend.
I'll taste my pee-pee.
Taste is basically the less raunchy female version of that video, and I kinda love it. This is a really fun song, I don't really know what else to say. Sabrina has great taste here, but really, her material is quite tasteful. There's a bit of a throwback vibe I feel when I listen to her music, but it doesn't lean too hard into it and wear out its welcome. That's a big part of what got Short and Sweet to pretty quickly establish itself as one of my favorite pop albums of the decade. And while Espresso and Please 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 may be Sabrina's biggest hits this year, and they are great, much of what really gets her to click with me is found in Taste. Number 7. I've been pretty open about not really liking a lot of my older videos that much. It mostly comes from a place of having made great strides in improving my production and thought process, but as much as I might not hold those videos in the same regard as my more modern work, those videos, at least the ones I didn't unlist, do serve a purpose in the overall narrative of my channel. When it comes to the best and worst songs videos, that's where some of my biggest regrets tend to lie. As I stated in the intro, I consider myself an outsider to the world of chart analysis, so I'm not always in the know about a lot of stuff going on in the world of pop music that people more experienced would argue are more deserving of inclusion on either the best or the worst list. And so when I become more aware of a particular song down the line, I get kind of mad that I didn't talk about it when I had the opportunity to, and that's on me. One example I have of one of my biggest regrets in this series was not talking about Hozier in Best Songs of 2015. Andrew Hozier Byrne is an Irish indie rock artist, and in 2015 he had a massive hit with Take Me to Church. His singing is very soulful, the chord progression is really haunting, I enjoy the use of drums, piano, and distorted guitar, there's a time change at one point, and the production is strong. Had I been aware of what the song sounded like, it would have easily ranked pretty high on my best list that year. Maybe I was still watching a lot of atheist content at the time and was put off by the word church in the title and thought, oh god, this isn't some Christian bullshit, is it?
No.
It's actually a subtle tongue-in-cheek song about sex and connection. 2015 Shades, you are a fool for sleeping on this. I think it was maybe a year or two later when I finally listened to Hozier's stuff and took more of a dive into his music. He's a really talented musician, and his albums are definitely worth checking out. While he has a strong following, for the longest time I pretty much saw Hozier as basically being a one-hit wonder, at least over here. So you can imagine how shocked I was that he managed to have another massive hit with Too Sweet from an EP he put out called Unheard almost 10 years after Take Me to Church was a hit. How often does that happen? It literally came out of nowhere. Usually whenever anomalies like this happen, it's because of TikTok, but I'm not seeing any evidence suggesting that. Not that it really matters, because I'm glad Hozier was able to break free from that one-hit wonder status. Too Sweet might not exactly have the flair that Take Me to Church does, but we still get a lot of that personality. The instrumentation is more in line with general indie rock, and the vocals are as bluesy and soulful as ever. That's for sure the big thing that sells this song for me, how Hozier presents himself as something of a rock star. He's known to write from the perspective of different characters, with Too Sweet being about how different his lifestyle is from his partner's. He sings about operating on different hours, sleeping late, and living life a little dangerously, while his partner is, for lack of a better term, normal. I can relate to the general sentiment of operating on strange hours. Why do you think there's a recurring joke of me being a closet stoner because of how fucked up my eyes look without the shades? It's because I'm constantly tired due to the hours I operate on that I doubt most people outside of my general friend circle would get. As much as you can sense some resentment that his partner isn't very much like him, you can tell he isn't exactly treating it as a deal breaker. He likes her enough that he wants to see where this goes, with the bells that you hear in the chorus potentially indicating that he isn't opposed to the idea of marriage, even despite the different wavelengths they're on. And what's cool is that there's no desperation to be found in any of these lines. But yeah, musically this is solid. I wouldn't say this rocks super hard, but I like when songs I cover in the series have that kind of instrumentation going for it. I've always gotten some classic vibes from Hozier, if that makes sense, and it's nice to see more people rediscovering that charm that he had back in 2015. While it's uncertain if he'll have more hits like this in the following years, he definitely has a good career going for him, and as mad as I might be at 2015 me for missing a golden opportunity to talk about him, I'm glad to have gotten in on it. Number 6. Yep, I'm throwing another curveball. While not my favorite pop release of the year, Billie Eilish's Hit Me Hard and Soft was a solid album to follow up her last album, Happier Than Ever. And while Birds of a Feather and the lesbian-coded Lunch were nice upbeat tunes, I've said before that I tend to prefer her more ballady songs. Wildflower reminds me a good bit of Happier Than Ever in the sense that it builds up in a manner that doesn't come across as being at all forced. And while the song might not be as anthemic, it really hooks you in with its chord progression. F-sharp minor is a cool dramatic key, and the chorus makes great use of the 5-7 chord, C-sharp 7. There's great use of tension throughout the song, and it correlates excellently to its subject matter. Wildflower is a breakup song from a third-person perspective. Billie is consoling her friend as she's dealing with the aftermath of the situation.
She was crying on my shoulder. All I could do was hold her. Only made us closer until July.
Now, what could have happened in July that caused the two of them to not be as close?
She was your girl. You showed her the world. We fell out of love and you both let go.
Yeah, this song is being sung to the guy. And the chorus reveals that she's now dating this guy, and that's what ruptured her friendship with the ex. And it leads to her feeling guilt about the way things ended up progressing.
Did I cross the line?
That C-sharp 7 chord functions greatly to show this tension in the back of her mind that she may be hurting her friend. She doesn't want to compare herself to her friend, but she can't help but always have her mind drifting to her when she's with this guy, even as he doesn't want to dwell on his ex, cause, like, why would he want to do that now? The song speaks a lot to the intrusive thoughts we tend to have. Speaking as someone that deals with anxiety, I couldn't tell you the number of times where I'd be overthinking a situation. In the context of relationships, it can feel unsettling knowing that your partner was with someone else before you. It's like the feeling of existentialism that comes about when you realize that you wouldn't be alive right now had it not been for your parents at one point having sex with each other. It can be difficult to shake these kinds of images from your mind, but the reality is, we don't even know for sure if the ex is mad at Billy. That's how much this song is predicated on things that might not actually be true. But that's just how Billy feels about this turn of events. The only person she can really speak for is herself. Hey guys, Future Shades here. It didn't occur to me while I was scripting this, but Wildflower actually has a little similarity with Taste by Sabrina Carpenter, in the sense that both songs basically revolve around a guy moving on to a new girl, and the current girlfriend having to grapple with the idea that he was with somebody else before her. The difference being, of course, that Sabrina is being really catty about it and rubbing it in the girl's face, trying to make her feel uncomfortable, while Billy feels a sense of guilt about it, considering she and the ex were close. It's really interesting. I can't help but think of Blackbird by Alter Bridge when I immerse myself in the tonality that the song provides, as that's another slow song in F-sharp minor that makes great use of dramatic tension, and so I, of course, see this as my first opportunity for one of these. Wildflower is awesome. Happier Than Ever is for sure more bombastic, and while Wildflower definitely seems like it could benefit from having that kind of bombast, I nonetheless vibe really well with this and really dig its flow. It helps that Billy isn't the kind of singer that belts out a lot, even if a song could very well call for that kind of delivery. Her breathy tone lends itself well to the mood of both the music and the lyrics. It may be a pretty sad song, as Billie Eilish songs are kind of known to be, but I still feel good listening to it. I love the construction a lot, and that's why I'm glad this has become one of my new favorites of Billy's. Number 5. Teddy swims? I'm sure he does, because swimming is fun. Come on, you really think I wouldn't make a pun about that? Would you prefer if I made a reference to him being named after the town that hosts the Dimmadome? You know, the one that's owned by Doug Dimmadome?
Doug Dimmadome? The owner of the Dimsdale Dimmadome?
That's right, Doug Dimmadome, owner of the Dimsdale Dimmadome.
Dimmadam.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
When I first heard Lose Control, I knew right away I was going to be talking about it in this video. I knew it was big throughout the year, and maybe I wasn't paying super close attention, but number 1 on the year-end chart? That's wild. Not that I'm complaining, because the song did quite a bit to get me to raise an eyebrow. I look at Lose Control as somewhat of an amalgamation of the previous 2 songs on this list. Like Wildflower, it's in F-sharp minor and makes great use of the C-sharp 7 chord.
I'm falling apart right in front of you, can't you see?
And like Too Sweet, it's got a real indie blues vibe, though I would definitely say it ups the ante with the bluesiness. Like, when's the last time you've heard someone on the year-end chart sing like this? You can tell when someone utilizes those kinds of vocal flares that they take a lot of influence from classic rock singers like Steven Tyler or Paul Rodgers, which is another similarity I noticed between Teddy and Hozier. But what's also neat about this is that it doesn't sound like he's leaning too hard into the mold of a throwback artist. The drumming doesn't give me a lot of old-time rock and roll vibes, but rather the kind of instrumentation 2000s indie artists tend to like using. And since I mentioned Steven Tyler, the song I find myself thinking of a lot when listening to this song is Crazy by Aerosmith. Since it's also in 6/8, it's in A major, which is the relative major of F-sharp minor, and leans hard into the slow bluesy feel. And Crazy is one of my favorite songs of Aerosmith, so that's a major compliment. His performance correlates well to the song's subject matter. It's a song about being really into someone. When thinking about a lot of those kinds of classic rock singers I alluded to, not only do they use similar metaphors as Teddy does here, but they go all in with putting on a show with their delivery. When you're into someone, they make you want to bust out like that, not just because you're wanting to impress them, but because something inside you is compelling you to go all in. I like his delivery here.
Out of my mind, how many times did I tell you I'm no good at being alone?
That kind of slick delivery could only come if your heartbeat was racing. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention this. Yes! A song with a solo! I'm not exactly the craziest about slide solos because I find them to be pretty limiting from a guitarist's perspective, but there's nonetheless a particular swagger that comes with the movements up and down the neck that makes them interesting to listen to in a number of different contexts. Could I shred over this song if I wanted to? Yes! But I see this solo as being more like the one in Adore You by Harry Styles, where it sounds cool for what it is, compared to the one in Until I Found You by Steven Sanchez, where I didn't think it was reaching its full potential, even if it was stylistically appropriate for the kind of song it was, hence why I gave it a solo treatment. No matter the case, it's awesome that the #1 song of 2024 has such a bluesy solo and a bluesy vibe in general. Hey guys, Future Shades here again. Just want to show you something that I think is going to further prove my point about the potential that the song has to go bigger in the solo department. So a thing I do when a song either doesn't have a music video, or it doesn't have a music video where the artist is visible, or if my usage of the music video gets my video blocked, is I use live footage of the song. And I try to find the best quality live recording that I can, like it wasn't recorded on a phone and it's available in at least 720p. And what I do is I retime the live video to be in sync with the studio recording, which essentially creates a music video effect of sorts. Because the thing with live performances is it's not going to sound exactly the same as it does on the studio recording. It might be a little faster, it might be a little slower. All it really is an indication that they're actually playing live. And that's basically what we call human imperfection. And this isn't meant to talk down on live versions or studio versions or say that one is better than the other. I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, studio recordings are just too perfect these days. It's basically a grid. Where's the imperfection? Music is supposed to be imperfect. I'm Rick Beato. Blah, 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 blah. And this isn't to say that I have anything against Rick Beato, by the way. I do find his videos pretty interesting whenever I do watch them, but he's got some real boomer takes, let's be real. So anyway, when I was retiming the live performance of Lose Control that I've been showing here, I noticed that the video that I was using is longer than the studio recording. And the reason why that is because the solo is actually extended. It goes on for twice the length. So I want to show you a little bit more of what the guitarist here is doing, because again, I think it proves my point about the potential the song has. Lose Control is such a delight, and Teddy Swims has made a great impression on me. I can be a real sucker for bluesy tunes, especially when they don't hold back on those overtones. And I'm sure by now you guys are noticing there's been a lot of rock-adjacent stuff on this list. And guess what? We're not even done talking about that stuff. Number 4. Chris Stapleton is my favorite country artist. Why? Because when you really break it down, he's basically a southern rock artist playing country. He definitely has a voice for country, and it's also very soulful, but his songs are sonically constructed like rock songs that don't lean super hard into the cliches associated with country's sound. He essentially acts as the true middle ground between country and rock. Take for instance this cover he did of steel guitarist Buddy Emmons' song Feel So Bad that I've heard playing at the gym a handful of times.
You know I feel so bad. Don't like a ball game on a rainy day.
Dude's a rocker. And he leans pretty hard into that side of him with a handful of his own music, with White Horse, the male equivalent of White Pony, being a prominent example of it. I know the song was featured on a number of best lists for last year since it was released as a single on July 21st with his album Higher! Coming out on November 10th, but it wasn't on the year-end chart last year, so I'm safe. Please don't leave any actually comments because I explained my criteria very clearly. So how exactly does Stapleton sound like a southern rock artist here? Well, when we think of southern rock, bands like Lynyrd Skynyrd, the Allman Brothers, Molly Hatchet, and the Black Crowes come to mind. The kinds of musical characteristics we associate heavily with southern rock are blues licks, some country twang, rich harmonies, and southern-tinged vocals with a bit of a rasp. And when you listen to a song like White Horse, you'd really have to split some hairs to come up with a distinction if you don't see Stapleton having any of those characteristics in his sound. If you were to ask me what the distinctions were between country and southern rock, I would say country doesn't lean hard into a general rock sound, makes more prominent usage of instruments like banjo and fiddle, and has a thicker southern accent in the vocals, whereas southern rock has more of a harder rock edge and has more prominent guitar work than you tend to hear in country. I'm not saying Chris Stapleton has the sound down to a T, since his writing is mainly rooted in country. I'm saying his execution is very in line with what you tend to hear from southern rock bands. And while World on Fire had kind of a post-grunge sounding approach, Stapleton is the kind of sound that I see really appealing to rock fans of a lot of different varieties, and White Horse has him doing just that. The guitar riff that's used is the kind of bluesy riff you'd associate with rock bands from the 70s that wore that influence on their sleeve. And those lead licks at the beginning also call to that blues influence. C-sharp, or D-flat minor, is a really rugged key that carries a lot of attitude, and I love how Stapleton just goes all in on conveying that in his performance. Not only is his singing so much more soulful than I'd think a country artist has any right to sound, he sings about being a cowboy on a steel horse he rides, you know what I mean.
If you want a cowboy on a white horse, riding out into the sunset, if that's the kind of love you wanna wait for.
I jest, of course. He's actually singing about how he's wanting his woman to be patient for him while he gradually builds himself up to be the man she needs, and he likens it to being a heroic cowboy and journeying home. There's hardly much else I can imagine being sung over this kind of southern blues-tinged swagger in the instrumentation. Even if you're not the biggest fan of country vocals, Stapleton absolutely sells this song with his performance. And as if things couldn't get better, we also have this. Yep, that's 2 songs on this list with guitar solos. There's definitely some feel in that solo, and it functions stylistically. I can understand why Stapleton might think playing something akin to a Jeff Carlisi of 38 Special might be a bit much for what he thinks the song needs, but hey, that's why I'm here. I'm really glad Chris Stapleton is an artist I'm into. Along with Luke Combs and Morgan Wallen, he's established himself as one of the definitive country artists of this generation. I've mentioned many times, even in this video, that I'm not a big country guy, but an artist like Chris Stapleton is exactly the kind of artist that makes me curious if I'm missing out, even though I know for a fact that there really isn't another artist that sounds like him. With songs like White Horse, he challenges your perception of what country sounds like and stands in a class all his own, and that's the kind of thing I really appreciate the most about him. Number 3. I know, Bruno Mars is always guaranteed a spot on the best list since he's my favorite current pop artist and I'm obligated to talk about him whenever he's on the year-end chart, unless that song is Please Me. I'm so fucking predictable. But truth be told, when I saw that he collaborated with Lady Gaga on this song where they dress up like cowboys in the music video, I was legitimately curious what I would think. My favorite current pop artist making a song with the artist I perhaps hated the most in high school due to how over-glorified I found her to be at the time. If you remember when I talked about Rain on Me in Best Songs of 2020, I explained how my opinion on Gaga softened over time once she started showing more raw musical ability and not trying too hard to be shocking and provocative. As much as this pairing looks like something that came straight from 2011, I had a feeling that whatever Die With a Smile sounded like, I was sure to be intrigued given the track records of both these artists. Much like Lose Control, we've got another slow 6/8 song in A major. I'm noticing that there's a lot of interconnectivity with these songs stylistically and in terms of construction, and that's honestly kind of crazy. This might not be a funk jam or a sensual song for the bedroom like Bruno is mostly known for these days, but I feel like he's the kind of artist where you could put him in just about any different musical context and he would absolutely sell it. And as for Gaga, this is probably the furthest removed from the kind of over-the-top pop stuff high school me complains so much about. Her best songs in my eyes are You and I, Edge of Glory, Shallow, stuff like that. And her performance on this song is not only in line with what I appreciate about those 3 songs, but it's the best performance I've ever heard from her. Even if by herself she sounds like she's putting on a bit of a southern accent, that makes me think of the South Park episode with Hillary Clinton and the Snook with how obvious it is that it's fake.
Lost in the words that we speak. I don't even want to do this anymore. Because it is
South Park that you find the true America.
If the song actually did exist in 2011, maybe I'd have probably still acted like I was too cool for it, knowing how much of a tool high school me was. But I could definitely see it growing on me over time to where I'd have no choice but to concede that both Gaga and Bruno are talented singers. Because remember, Bruno didn't start to win me over until 2012. I could gush about how much I love the country, rock, ballad instrumentation. What I really want to gush about is the singing. Good lord, these harmonies between Bruno and Gaga are insane. Like, listen to this part. Man, hitting that high E note is one thing, but I love how it mixes with the high B note Bruno hits and layered over the A chord in the progression. It gives me memories of talking about Just Give Me a Reason by Pink and Nate Ruess way back in Best Songs of 2013, with how much I adored the chemistry and harmonies between the two of them, and this blows it out the water big time. Much of Die With a Smile is spent with the two of them providing such lush harmonies, but this right here is the song's goosebump moment. Actually, I lied, there's another goosebump moment. So not only is the C-sharp 7-5 chord coming back again since 2024 seems to really like that chord, it not only resolves to F-sharp minor, which is my favorite type of chord change by the way, but we're also going to throw in a B7 chord as a way to turn the progression around for the chorus's final repeat of the last line, and the harmonies sound insane over that too. I feel like I'm being spoiled here, so I'm going to give something back. Since I didn't do one of these for Lose Control since the job was pretty much done for me, it's time for another one of these since I think it'll sound cooler over this anyway. As much as I'd love it if I could talk about another 24K Magic or Smoking Out the Window type tune from Bruno, I love this so much. The instrumentation and chord progressions are just that strong, and the vocals just sell me that much. Again, 2024 is pulling no punches with how gorgeous these songs can get. This is for sure my favorite song involving Lady Gaga that I've ever heard, and while I continue to wait patiently for Bruno to follow up 24K Magic, or make another Silk Sonic album with Anderson .Paak, I don't know, a song like Die With a Smile is as great an indication as ever to show that he is still making awesome music. Number 2. Now this is what I'm fucking talking about! A channel I casually watch from time to time is Rumi Official. He makes pretty entertaining music content. He posted this video one day called Why the World's Biggest Song Right Now is Awesome, and it's a reaction/analysis of this song Beautiful Things by a guy called Benson Boone. And I'm kinda confused because I've never heard of this guy or this song before, and this was apparently the biggest song at that moment. It started out pretty solidly.
For a while there it was rough, but lately I've been doing better than the last 4 cold Decembers I recall.
You know, not a bad sounding ballad. But then, I get absolutely blindsided.
God, please stay. I want you, I need you, oh God.
Yo, what the fuck? This is popular? I don't believe this. This has to be clickbait. But next thing I knew, I was hearing it being played at my old job pretty regularly. And I was like, well, I'll be damned. It looks like this is legit. Good job, person named after a hot-headed talking gumball machine. You, sir, are going straight to the top of my best list this year. I don't think I felt this much excitement over a pop song since 24K Magic at the earliest and Blinding Lights at the latest. The song is that awesome. Benson Boone was apparently someone who auditioned for American Idol after its great American demise in relevance. After his stint there, he put more of his focus into creating TikTok content as well as a couple EPs. Of course, because this is such a curveball-sounding song by pop music standards, TikTok is largely to thank for its spread. But regardless, there are so many aspects as to how this song blows my mind. I've talked about a handful of rock songs or rock-adjacent songs in this series and was pretty excited to do so, but Beautiful Things goes so much harder that I find myself questioning if any of this is real. It's one thing for rock to get some representation on the Hot 100. It's always welcome. I'm not one of these rock fans that thinks that the music is less credible if it's mainstream or reaches this level of popularity or doesn't sound enough like the 80s or 90s, and at the very least it does what it needs to wave its proverbial dick in the face of people delusional enough to still believe that rock is dead. But it's another thing for a rock song to contribute to its representation on the Hot 100 and isn't just doing the bare minimum. And looking at a song like Beautiful Things, it feels very, very earned. I've heard various complaints about this song, ranging from not liking the vocals, which we'll talk about in a moment, to drawing comparisons to the likes of Lucas Graham and Lewis Capaldi. To that I say, so? Chalk this up to this just being my worthless opinion, if you will, but you say that like it's a bad thing. I've spoken positively about both of those artists in this series, and while in retrospect I do think I may have hyped them a little too much for what they were ultimately worth, like 7 Years did not need to be that high in Best Songs of 2016, I nonetheless stand by my belief that both Lucas and Lewis, their names sound similar, are talented and to my liking as someone that mostly listens to rock and metal. And if Benson here is going to be another guy that I clearly have the unpopular opinion on around here because of that, then I will gladly die on that hill. I give no fucks because the dude's just made that strong of an impression on me with this song. Stronger than Lucas Graham or Lewis Capaldi could ever dream of, for as positive as I was towards both of them. The crunchy, distorted guitar tone, the hard-hitting drums, the song being in a badass key like B-flat major, the drive it goes into when the time signature changes from 4/4 to 6/8. This song does a lot to make me genuinely bust out headbanging. It can't be understated how wonderful of a feeling it is when a song can make you do that. Just like the wonderful feeling I get when I know from the get-go that a song is begging for this. And of course, there's Benson's vocals. He sounds solid enough in the verses, but again, he really defies expectations once the chorus hits and he sings in his upper register, let alone with the power coming from the backing instrumentation. When he does that little begging-sounding vocal pickup, he reminds me a lot of my friend AJ from Shakeout, aka the band I shouted out in the very first Cameo Fest of Sean's that I was a part of, who has a tendency to do similar things with his voice. When you're projecting yourself over loud instrumentation, these sorts of flares and quips happen almost unintentionally with certain voices, and you end up sounding a lot more charismatic. But then Benson does this. Damn, dude, this guy fucking shrieks! A perfect fifth above the root note in the upper register. Not that I've never heard a vocalist hit notes that high or even higher, but range like this, especially from a man, let alone a man named after a hot-headed talking gumball machine, feels a lot harder to come by these days than it probably is. My only complaint about the song is that it's 3 minutes long and I wish it were longer. And I haven't even talked about Beautiful Things' lyrics. The song is about being in a great place in life, but knowing in the back of your mind that it might not last forever. What with that saying of how all good things must come to an end being a thing.
But I know the things he gives me, he can take away.
It's a bit religiously tinged, as you just heard, but it's a sentiment I'm sure most of us have felt at some point in our lives. No matter if you live a privileged life or a life where those high points come few and far between and you feel like you can't catch a break, we don't just want to feel good in life, we want it to stay that way. I've definitely had periods of time where I felt like things were great and that nothing could go wrong, but then eventually the bubble bursts and this song starts playing in your head. Even now, when I'm feeling mostly content and at peace with my life at the moment, I'd hate for something to completely destroy all that I have going on and send me into a massive paranoid frenzy. Lord knows I've felt that way before, and I don't want to feel that way again. You listen to how Benson sounds in the chorus, and you can almost sense that fear, like he's begging and pleading for God to not be a sadistic douche like he can be a lot of the time and fuck it up for him. But the song also reminds us to show gratitude for the things in life that we do have, whether it's big things like your career aspirations or your love life, or the little things like food and shelter, or even something abstract like the feeling of belonging. The reality is we could lose those beautiful things, or something even more horrible could happen that I really don't want to say out loud. I could choose to be one of those cynical realists that tells you to expect the worst at all times because of the inherent unfairness of life, but it's always important to cherish what you have, even while things could always be better. And among many things, one such thing that I of course no doubt have to express such gratitude for is you guys, watching this video, giving me your time, listening to my insights, engaging with this video in whatever ways you feel like doing. I am by no means a large channel, my videos don't always get a lot of views, and I mostly treat YouTube as a very passionate hobby of mine, with music discourse being something I love contributing to. And it means the world that there are people that care at all, because that could just as easily stop being the case. Or maybe something happens that gets my channel shut down. So, thank you. And thank you, Benson, for this beautiful thing you've created. I don't care how corny that sounds. I love this song so much. I can't tell you how happy I am that I get to talk about it in this video, because I've been anxious as hell all year to get the green light from the year-end chart and put all my thoughts to paper, or rather my script template Word doc. But as you can tell, I ultimately decided to not put this at number 1. You're probably asking, why? You were so jumpy and enthusiastic throughout this segment. What could possibly have been put above this? Very reasonable question. I thought all year that this would be the song that tops my best list. It rocks hard. This is the kind of stuff I get the most excited to talk about in the Best Songs series. But after thinking about it for a while, I decided that the number 1 spot should go to something a little more unconventional, a little spicier, a little more arguably out of character of a song for me to analyze. But despite that, a song that I think we can all come together on viewing as an outright musical bombshell. And that song is none other than...
Stop laughing!
I'm going to begin this segment with a funny little story of a YouTuber interaction that I had this year. So, I'm a fan of YouTube poops, if you couldn't tell from some of the memes I like using in my videos. One YTPer I'm subscribed to is an old school gent by the name of CaptPants6. He put out a YouTube poop of Drake that I'm going to play a clip from.
Your mother so dumb, she started inflation. Fetish uses balloons. Your mother so fat, she make Rick Ross look like Millie Bobby Brown. Your mother so dumb, she thought Malaysia was an African disease.
I left a comment on this video saying, what's sad is that Drake is legitimately the kind of rapper that would unironically make yo mama jokes in his songs.
Yo mama!
Cap not only heart reacted my comment, but he replied saying, what's sadder is they would have landed harder than what he actually did. What could this be referring to?
Let's find out.
You want to know one reason why I waited patiently for the year-end chart to drop before I officially began production on my year-end videos? Because I honest to God was worried that Billboard would pull a fast one and disallow any of Kendrick Lamar's Drake disses a spot on the year-end chart, least of all this one. And they'd come up with some contrived reason like, well, it wasn't officially released as a single. It's a diss track, so it's technically different. We don't really want to host a song of this nature on our chart. Or some other bullshit like that. Like, come on. This is the same chart that featured Runnin' Up That Hill by Kate Bush, a song from 1985, on the year-end chart in 2022 due to its boost in popularity from its feat in a Netflix show. It's also the same chart that featured This Is America by Childish Gambino, a song that is hardly less brutal with the message it conveyed in 2018. And I shouldn't even have to mention the meme songs that we've seen get featured. Billboard would have had no leg to stand on if they made this decision, and they would have gotten clowned by everybody aware of it. And some people would likely go as far as to argue that the decision was made with the intent of protecting the fragile and sensitive Drake. But thankfully that didn't happen, because they knew better. Not Like Us was far too big to ignore or sweep under the rug. It was a summer anthem. People were out partying and having fun to this song. It was being played on the radio, albeit with a lot being edited out. This was a legit hit. Hey, that rhymes. You don't really see this too often with diss tracks or beefs within rap. A lot of the time, they're basically treated as something only a handful of people are in the know about, most of whom being from the rap community, and they don't really get super far out to the degree that they become Billboard mainstays. I remember in 2018 when Eminem and Machine Gun Kelly had their beef. A lot of people talked about it, and I was definitely aware of it, but it wasn't this culture-defining moment, and we didn't see Rap Devil or Killshot become massive hits. Even this year, we had diss tracks like Hiss from Megan Thee Stallion and Bigfoot from Nicki Minaj during their beef, but they're both now treated as afterthoughts. The beef between Kendrick and Drake was something everybody knew about, even if you don't listen to rap at all. Like I said in the War Songs video, 2024 was essentially the year of the diss track. I'm not someone that makes a point to follow a lot of rap beefs, but it was hard to avoid any kind of discussion about this, especially given what transpired and how it did so. I'm not going to give an excruciatingly detailed summary of the beef. There are lots of videos that go into way more detail about it than I'm going to. I will try to include as much context as I think is necessary for the purpose of this segment. So where exactly did this beef between Kendrick and Drake originate? I think the best place to start is with Drake's song First Person Shooter, which came out on Halloween of 2023, where J. Cole in his guest verse says this.
Love when they argue the hardest MC. Is it K-Dot, is it Aubrey or me? We the big three like we started a league.
To be fair, it's hard to dispute that idea, as those are all names I would likely think of if you were to ask me who I think the big three of mainstream rappers of this generation are. But Kendrick said,
fuck that.
Kendrick later featured on the song Like That by Metro Boomin and where he vehemently disapproved of Cole's idea that he should even be in the same conversation as a guy like Drake, let alone be included in a big three.
Motherfuck the big three, nigga, it's just big me, nigga, boom. What? I'm really like that, and your best work is a light pack, nigga, Prince outlived Mike Jack.
That Mike Jack part alluding to Drake's desperation to dethrone Michael Jackson's record for most #1 hits, you know, kinda like Katy Perry tried to do. While J. Cole gracefully bowed out of this whole thing after trying to diss Kendrick, Drake on the other hand felt that he could not take this line down. He's the biggest rapper right now. He's right up with Taylor Swift in terms of chart presence. And while he got lucky when he was beefing with Meek Mill in 2015, he didn't get so lucky when it came to his beef with Pusha T in 2018. Pusha put out a song called The Story of Adidon, where he said this.
You are hiding a child, let that boy come home. Deadbeat motherfucker playing border patrol. Ooh, Adonis is your son, and he deserves more than an Adidas press run.
That allegation right there of Drake having a secret son was what pushed things in Push's favor, and Drake did not respond. Maybe he felt that he didn't want to add fuel to the fire, but in the eyes of most onlookers, he tucked and ran. He was not about to make that same mistake when batting against the most acclaimed and respected rapper in the industry today, even if he doesn't have the same reputation that Kendrick has. So he responded with 2 diss tracks, Push-Ups and Tailor-Made Freestyle, which isn't actually a freestyle in case you didn't know. The songs are mostly spent building himself up like he's untouchable because he's more famous, making fun of Kendrick for being short, and making fun of him for doing features for pop artists such as Taylor Swift, hence the Taylor in the title, and Maroon 5. He even went as far as to use AIs of both Snoop Dogg and Tupac co-signing him, which Tupac's estate rightfully took offense to, and not even just because of the ethics of AI, which is a whole separate discussion altogether. Kendrick of course responded with 2 disses in the form of Euphoria and 616 in LA on April 30th and May 3rd respectively, and he was merciless. He goes at Drake for being a softie like we all have before, he references the Pusha T beef, but the main takeaway is that he went mask off about how he hates everything Drake stands for.
I hate the way that you walk, the way that you talk. I hate the way that you dress. I even hate when you say the word nigga. But that's just me, I guess. Some shit just cringeworthy.
And that's a major theme that we're going to talk more about later. He also played these out like he was anticipating what Drake's next move would be.
Why calculate, you're not as calculated. I can even predict your angle.
The same day 616 dropped, Drake responded with Family Matters with that really hilarious Steve Urkel reference that totally made everybody laugh. You know, I think might actually be a good time to throw this little thing in with a little modification done.
So go on and cry me a river. Don't say this will haunt you forever. It never did, it never will.
In this track, he tries to make Kendrick out to be a wannabe tough guy and even goes as far as to make some allegations of domestic abuse. Regardless of how bad that kind of accusation can be for a person, he was essentially saying, "No, you!" Which that's always annoyed me when a person responds to a call-out by deflecting onto the person making the call-out as if it's the same as actually responding to what they had to say. It's very akin to how Must Destroy All responded to his allegations, which that comparison's going to be really funny real soon. A mere 20 minutes after Family Matters dropped, Kendrick dropped Meet the Grams, where he addresses Drake's family, including his son, about how much of a disappointment Drake is. You want to talk family matters? Well, look no further.
Dear Adonis, I'm sorry that man is your father. Dear Sandra, your son got some habits, I hope you don't undermine them. Especially with all the girls that's hurt inside this climate. You raised a horrible fucking person, the nerve of you, dearest. Your son's a sick man with sick thoughts. He a narcissist, misogynist, living inside his songs. Cause our children is the future, but he lives inside confusion. Money's always been illusion, but that's the life he's used to.
This would normally be something I would find to be tactless, since I've witnessed a lot of drama on here where needlessly personal attacks were made. But again, what I find so insane about this is that the dominoes were being set up exactly the way Kendrick intended, and all was going according to plan. Drake was looking like the loser of this battle, and it felt like Kendrick had the power to see into the future. Even when Drake tried to predict the kinds of shots Kendrick would take at him, this was basically playing out like,
I can see into the future too, but better than Drake.
And then, 24 hours later, on May 4th, Kendrick goes in for the kill. Enter Not Like Us. With this song, Kendrick had effectively rendered any kind of response Drake could make to be futile, and he did this in the most fun and hilarious way imaginable. He may have been merciless on Euphoria and Meet the Grams, but he was straight up evil here. The kind of evil that's enjoyable to watch, if only for how charismatic and entertaining of a villain they are. He went for every big-ticket item he had against Drake and did it in such a callous way. When he says,
"They not like us,"
one reason as to why is that Drake doesn't represent rap. A line like,
"No, you not a colleague, you a fucking colonizer,"
is probably racist and a no true Scotsman, but it's meant to showcase that Drake never lived the kinds of struggles that most rappers have, and that in his eyes, he's not truly part of that culture, which is something I've been saying as far back as when I talked about Started From the Bottom and Worst Songs of 2013. I probably am not the best person to be making a claim that Drake is appropriating a culture that's very personal to someone like Kendrick, since I'm not part of that culture myself. But what I can get behind Kendrick on is how Drake has always come across as a total poser. And I know I'm not alone in thinking that.
Hate the Drake!
I've made it no secret over the years that I really dislike Drake as an artist and thoroughly loathe his music. He may be kind of an easy target for me, I will admit, but a Worst Songs video almost never feels complete without a roasting of a Drake song. I looked through my past Worst Songs lists and found that Drake is actually the artist I've complained about the most throughout the series, more than Taylor Swift, Nicki Minaj, and even Meghan Trainor, the one artist in the series I truly hate. Worst Songs of 2012 had the motto. Worst Songs of 2013 had the previously mentioned Started From the Bottom. Worst Songs of 2014 didn't have any Drake songs, but he did appear in the music video for Anaconda by Nicki Minaj, which I still find to be pretty funny. Worst Songs of 2015 had Hotline Bling. Worst Songs of 2016 had Jumpman in the dishonorable mentions, along with his featuring on Work by Rihanna, which doesn't count, but I'm only mentioning it here because it's a song Drake was on that I covered in that video. Worst Songs of 2017 had
Nothing!
Worst Songs of 2018 had In My Feelings and God's Plan. Worst Songs of 2019 had
Nothing!
Worst Songs of 2020 had Tootsie Slide. Worst Songs of 2021 had Way Too Sexy, as well as Girls Want Girls in the dishonorable mentions, which is my pick for the worst Drake song I've ever heard. Worst Songs of 2022 had Knife Talk. Worst Songs of 2023 had Rich Flex. And as for Worst Songs of 2024, you're gonna have to watch it yourself, since I'm not gonna spoil it here. That's 12 songs across 13 installments in the series. You can tell how much love I have for Drake. Kendrick Lamar, on the other hand, I've always had a lot of admiration for, ever since around 2012-2013 when I first heard of him. If the kinds of rap songs I talk about in the Worst Song series weren't indication enough, I'm very particular with how I like my rap to sound, and Kendrick made a really strong impression on me by being a very genuine personality and actually having things to say. I talked about both DNA and Humble in Best Songs of 2017, and they only scratched the surface. While he might not be my favorite rapper of all time, he is without a doubt talented as hell and the best in the business right now, and it's hard for anyone to disagree on that, even people at the Grammys. He's someone I take a lot more seriously on these sorts of subjects regarding culture, and he's definitely the right person to be setting the record straight that Drake is fake and garbage for all that he does and all that he represents.
What's up with these jabroni ass niggas trying to see Compton? You think the Bay gon' let you disrespect Pop, nigga? 21, get your false street cred.
But of course, I can't talk about the song and not talk about the aspect of this song that you're all clamoring for me to get to.
Say Drake, I hear you like I'm young. To any bitch that talk to him and they in love, just make sure you hide your little sister from him. Certified lover boys, certified pedophiles.
And the creme de la creme.
Trying to strike a chord and it's probably A minor.
So, let's talk about this. Drake has a bit of a reputation for liking young girls. The evidence people usually give to support this is how friendly he was towards actress Millie Bobby Brown when she was 14. On a surface level, it does look pretty sus, given how they would text each other frequently with cutesy stuff like, I miss you, I love you. There's also Bella Harris, a model and daughter of producer Jimmy Jam, that he was rumored to have been dating in 2018 when she was 18. Another thing that I've seen get referenced a lot is this one clip from a concert in 2010 where a girl came on stage and Drake hugged her, and when he asked how old she was, this happened.
I can't go to jail yet, man. I don't know if I should feel guilty or not, but I had fun. I like the way your breasts feel against my chest.
Which, yeah, does look creepy, especially given what he says in that clip. Now, I know what I'm about to say might lose me some people or get some people to side-eye me for bringing this up, but I really feel it needs to be said. I don't think I believe that Drake is a diddler. That's not to say that he doesn't come across as creepy towards women, but with the Millie Bobby Brown stuff, from all the research I've done into their relationship, I'm not finding any evidence of anything inappropriate taking place, certainly not from Millie herself, and nothing suggesting that Drake actively pursues underage girls because they're underage. Same with Bella Harris, since when I tried looking into that, I found sources saying that Bella herself denied that she was at the restaurant she was rumored to have been on a date with Drake at, though it looks like the Instagram posts linked in the articles have been deleted, so make of that what you will. Could some serious inappropriate shit have taken place between Drake and an underage girl? I don't know, and I don't think anybody really knows for sure. It's all speculation based on surface level information. I bring this up because I've seen a lot of instances where pedo accusations get thrown at a person where context is missing or the evidence is really sketchy, and it ends up taking a toll on an innocent person. This isn't me saying for sure that Drake is innocent, just that I believe he is deserving of some benefit of the doubt. That's pretty much why I've never made a point to take those kinds of shots anytime I've made fun of Drake.
Calling somebody a pedophile is a serious fucking accusation that you're accusing somebody, and you better have hardcore evidence to really support this.
After all, since I alluded to Must Destroy All a little earlier, before I made my video on him back in 2017, I, along with most other people in the ranting community, opted to give him benefit of the doubt for about a week or so. And keep in mind, like Drake, MDA was not somebody that I liked. But at the same time, like MDA at the time I made my video, Drake wasn't responding to these allegations, so you can't really blame people for thinking that's not doing you any favors. It's like Justin Timberlake said that one time. So given all that I said, why am I speaking positively about Not Like Us? Simple. Because it's funny seeing a rapper as badass as Kendrick Lamar be so cutthroat towards an artist I've disliked for so long. Even if the pedo accusations might be sketchy, the whole idea behind a diss track is that you want to clown on your target, and Kendrick clowned the shit out of Drake. Drake did try to respond to this with The Heart Part 6, where he claims Kendrick was being reactive and got his facts wrong, and even mentions Millie Bobby Brown, even though the damage was clearly done and Kendrick was unanimously declared the victor. But another thing that makes this so mind-bogglingly hilarious and sensational is the fact that Drake tried to file a lawsuit over this. Duh! Hey guys, Future Shades here. First of all, apologies that this segment has been going on for a while. I know that there is a lot of ground to cover with this whole thing. But while I was editing this video, this article came out, this piece of news was brought to my attention, that Drake is continuing to escalate these lawsuits. He really wants to take this shit to court. You know, he couldn't just do a more sensible thing like take the L. So I guess to explain what exactly he is trying to sue over, he's not suing Kendrick, since I guess he knows he can't win with that. He's instead going after the label, UMG. Initially, he was saying that they were, I guess, like botting streaming numbers, basically inflating the song, spreading falsities about the streaming data, really inflating the numbers. He can't just accept the fact that people really like the song a lot. But in this article over here, UMG actually responded to Drake, and I want to read this part to you because this is great. Not only are these claims untrue, but the notion that we would seek to harm the reputation of any artist, let alone Drake, is illogical. We've invested massively in his music, and our employees around the world have worked tirelessly for many years to help him achieve historic commercial and personal financial success. Now this part over here, this is where it gets really great. Throughout his career, Drake has intentionally and successfully used UMG to distribute his music and poetry to engage in conventionally outrageous back-and-forth rap battles to express his feelings about other artists. He now seeks to weaponize the legal process to silence an artist's creative expression and to seek damages from UMG for distributing that artist's music. We have not and do not engage in defamation against any individual. At the same time, we will vigorously defend this litigation to protect our people and our reputation, as well as any artist who might directly or indirectly become a frivolous litigation target for having done nothing more than write a song. Damn. Now, on one hand, as I kind of explained throughout this, I can understand to a degree wanting to sue for defamation and whatnot because these are pretty serious allegations. But it's kind of cool seeing a major label use the free speech defense. 'Cause yeah, it is what it is. I guess you could say that Kendrick was exercising his First Amendment rights diss track style. Okay, I'll stop. Back to the video. but that's what ultimately compelled me to put this at number 1 on this list. Beautiful Things is probably the song I love more, but Not Like Us absolutely had the stronger cultural impact. It brought everyone together. Everyone felt united in this shared idea that Drake is a hack. Was Kendrick being petty? Is there sort of a strange irony that the song going to number 1 is kind of on the back of Drake's name? I don't know, maybe. But regardless of whatever this says about Kendrick, Not Like Us is so damn fun. The DJ Mustard beat really gets you to bounce. The sample sounds a lot like Glory Days by Bruce Springsteen. Kendrick himself is just as intense as you'd want him to be. His wordplay is brilliant, as is to be expected. And this song and this whole turn of events, for as brief as it ultimately was, is going to go down as a hallmark moment in music history. 2024 was already an incredible year for pop music, but thanks in no small part to this and the other awesome songs on this list, while it would be irrational of me to claim this goal was fully achieved since great does not equal perfect, I feel more than confident in saying that we are truly on the path to make pop music great again. Of course, this video would not be complete without the section of the video that everyone gets excited for, the album rundown. While I loved the stuff I covered in this video, it goes without saying that there was plenty more great music being released this year that deserves acknowledgement. As much as a part of me wished more people were interested in the album listening streams so I could share them with you, I nonetheless enjoyed what 2024 had to offer in terms of album releases. My top 100-something albums of this year include but are not limited to, in a somewhat accurate order of enjoyment, Ariana Grande's Eternal Sunshine, Slutface's Film Buff, Find Me's Nightbound, Kane Hill's A Piece of Me I Never Let You Find, Kneecap's Fine Art, Bring Me the Horizon's Posthuman Next Gen, Brothers of Metal's Fimbulvinter, Wage War's Stigma, Ocean Grove's Oddworld, Action Bronson's Johann Sebastian Baklava the Doctor, Speed's Only One Mode, Cask's Brick by Brick, Gleamer's End of the Nail, Palais Royale's Death or Glory, Capstan's The Mosaic, Between You and Me's Shit Yeah, West Meets West's Ankless, One Assassination Under God Chapter 1, Driveway's Tempest, Enforced's A Leap Into the Dark, Nightwish's Yesterwind, Crowbots, Diamond Construct's Angel Killer 0, Paul Wardenham's Electromancer Enforcer, Pale Dusk's Pale Hell, Witherfall's Sons of the Forgotten, Neon Trees Sink Your Teeth, The End Machine's The Quantum Phase, Middle Kid's Faith Crisis Part 1, Marbin's Marbinico, Alpha Wolf's Half-Living Things, High on Fire's Cometh the Storm, Marina Kaye's Heavenbound, Rhapsodies, Please Don't Cry, Biba Doobies' This Is How Tomorrow Moves, Fontaine's DC's Romance, Sabrina Carpenter's Short and Sweet, Say Anything's Is Committed, Carly Cosgrove's The Cleanest of Houses Are Empty, Marcus King's Mood Swings, hey that rhymes, Ad Infinitum's Abyss, Black Country Communion's 5, Foster the People's Paradise State of Mind, Boston Manor's Sundiver, Crypt's Graveyard Shift, hey that kinda rhymes, Microwave's Let's Start Degeneracy, Slash's Orgy of the Damned, The Wild Thing's Afterglow, Jordan Rudess's Permission to Fly, Grey Lotus's Motherwort, In Her Own Words Left in the Dark, Ben Steller's Screams from New York, New York, Tyler the Creator's Chromacopia, Ayatun's Kinship, Rob Scallon's Crowded Rooms, Drug Church's Prude, The Used's Meds, Marianas Trench's Haven, The Last Dinner Party's Prelude to Ecstasy, Kendrick Lamar's GNX, Jordy Greep's The Warnings Keep Me Fed, World's Greatest Dad's Better Luck Next Time, Poppy's Negative Spaces, Frost's Life in the Wires, Interlopers A Forgotten Loss, Foxing's Self-Titled, Stand Atlantic's Was Here, Jerry Cantrell's I Want Blood, If Not For Me's Everything You Wanted, Drugs Until God Shows, Another Sky's Beach Day, Dirty Loop's Beagle, Maruja's Conla's Wall, Rabia Massad's Grinding Gears Volume 4, Crazy 88's Columbarium, Rarity's Lower Feeling, The Veer Union's Welcome to Dystopia, True North's Nightmare, Imminence's The Black, Miles Kennedy's The Art of Letting Go, The Early November's Self-Titled, Seven Spires A Fortress Called Home, Origami Angel's Feeling Not Found, Vended's Self-Titled, Vower's Apricity, Billie Eilish's Hit Me Hard and Soft, Casey's How to Disappear, Safe So Simple's Gravity, Cage the Elephant's Neon Pill, Thrailkill's Unperson, Balance and Composure's With You in Spirit, Zeal and Ardor's Grief, Tiny Moving Parts Deep in the Blue, Touche Amour's Spiral in a Straight Line, Rain City Drive's Things Are Different Now, Red-Handed Denial's A Journey Through Virtual Dystopia, Bates' Dreamweaver, Wheels' Charismatic Leaders, Fever 333's Darker White, Entheo's An End to Everything, Real Friends' Blue Hour, Winter Sun's Time 2, Luthero's Chasing Euphoria, 21 Pilots' Clancy, Eson's Self-Titled, Seether's The Surface Seems So Far, Green Day's Saviors, See You Space Cowboys' Coup de Grace, Stripers, Shokran's Duat, Capitol Theater's Major Arcana, The Ghost Inside's Searching for Solace, Future Palace's Distortion, Consider the Sources The Stare, Rat Owl's Rage Gracefully, Alkaline Trio's Blood, Hair, and Eyeballs, The Aristocrats' Duck, Andy Gillian's Exilium, Stop Drop Rewind's Self-Titled, Magdalena Bay's Imaginal Disc, One Step Closer's All You Embrace, Neck Deep's Self-Titled, A Marionette's Amvry 2, Caligula's Horse's Charcoal Grace, Sean Ash's Spark Underwater, Whom Gods Destroys Insanium, Anne Berlin's Vega, Cliff Diver's Birdwatching, Blood Incantation's Absolute Elsewhere, Devin Townsend's Power Nerd,
Randy!
Situae's Kindness, Unleash the Archer's Phantoma, Vola's Friend of a Phantom, Better Lover's Highly Irresponsible, Dua Lipa's Radical Optimism, Interval's Memory Palace, The Story So Far Is I Want to Disappear, Knocked Loose's You Won't Go Before You're Supposed to, Sungazers Against the Fall of Night, In Vain's Solemn, The Omnifix The Law of Augmenting Returns, Oceans of Slumbers Where Gods Fear to Speak, Leprous' Melodies of Atonement, Felix Martin's The Gathering, State Champ's Self-Titled, Paralydium's Universe Calls, Nick Johnston's Child of Bliss, 4 Year Strong's Analysis Paralysis, Vipassy's Lightless, Opeth's The Last Will and Testament, Kairos' Mannequin, Strung Out's Dead Rebellion, Ghost on Mars Out of Time and Space, Night vs. Every Sound Has a Color in the Valley of Night, Sum 41's Heaven X Hell, Nothing More's Carnal, Era's Cure, Trashboat's Heaven Can Wait, Belmont's Liminal, and my favorite album of the year that might not be too much of a shock, Bayside's There Are Worse Things Than Being Alive. If you haven't heard any of these albums and they sound interesting to you, do go and scope them out. I love 2024. Even despite those small few setbacks I had to deal with, this year took the positive vibes I had throughout 2023 and charged up a hill. And more to the point, this was also one of the best years for music I've experienced since 2016 at the earliest and 2022 at the latest. But you know something else? This was for sure the best year for pop music since 2012. When I made my retrospective 2012 countdowns in honor of the 10-year anniversary of graduating high school, I talked a lot about how much I loved the variety in the pop scene of that year, and made a special mention that there was a good deal of rock representation on the year-end chart. For years, I've viewed 2012 as the gold standard for contemporary pop music, and while that year's always going to hold a very special place in my heart for that reason, 2024 might have that beat. The variety was already really cool to see, but of the 10 songs on this list, the only ones on here that aren't at all rock or rock adjacent in any way, shape, or form are Houdini, Taste, Not Like Us, and possibly Die With a Smile and Wildflower. I think an argument can be made for those two given the kinds of instrumentation they utilized. And that's obviously not a knock against any of those songs, nor is it to imply that the only way for a pop song to be good is for it to be rock. I just like when that happens. I remember saying in Best Songs of 2022 that video had my favorite overall selection of songs. Fuck that. This video does. For fuck's sake, I did 4 solo treatments in this video. That's not shit I just hand out. I don't think there will ever be another year like this for a long time. Maybe not until 2036. Thank you so much for coming on this journey with me. I hope this video enthused you the way these songs have enthused me. I'm sorry if any of you got at all impatient waiting for this video, since I didn't have it go live the day after the Worst Songs video went up like I used to, and I wanted to take a bit more time with this one. But I'm nonetheless glad to have this video up, and I'm excited for what this year has in store, both on YouTube and off. Thank you for watching this video, take care, and have a nice day. I'm Shades, and I'll see you next time. Hey, buddy. Yeah? I'm thinking of a year that'll hopefully be cooler than 24. Let me hear it. 25!
Things are never gonna be quite what you want.